marching time. There's a full moon rising.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're all doing really well. In today's video, I want to break down the lockdown mix for the Ragdoll song, Follow the Leader. If you haven't heard the original recording of the song, I will put a link in the video description. I would love if you went and checked it out, or if you were feeling really generous, downloaded the song. But this is essentially like an isolation jam that we did, where we all played along to the original recording separately, and then I dragged everybody's separate recorded parts into this Pro Tools session and then mixed it. So if we look at the Pro Tools session, the first thing you'll notice is that everything is arranged into folders. This is a new feature in Pro Tools 2020, and it makes mixing and editing and doing all that kind of stuff so much easier. I've been loving it, especially for my demos. And with this, I just used my demo template that I basically use on everything that I record. And the thing that I like the most is that if you are listening to the whole mix and you either want to solo or mute, groups of instruments, you don't have to group them. You don't have to go through separately. You can just use the folders feature in there. For example, here I can open up my guitar folder and you can see the guitar tracks. But if I want everything to look a bit more slick and easier to navigate, I can close that. If I then play a section of the song, I can easily mute or solo all of the guitars. For example,
Treat me like a god. And on heart I pledge allegiance to your brazen birth.
so that is super handy, a very nice addition to the workflow. The big thing on this is that Cam played his electronic drums, his Roland V drums, but we didn't use the sound of the V drums. What I got him to do was I got him to record the MIDI output of his drums, and then I dragged that MIDI stuff that he sent, which is all here. I didn't do any editing to any of this either. It just kind of, it worked because he played it well. And as you can see, there's sections which aren't really on the grid or anything like that, but they're in time with the song and they're grooving and they feel really, really good. So what I did with those, like I said, rather than take the output of his V drums, I got the MIDI and I ran it through Slate SSD5. So I'm using drum samples here. This kind of just makes it sound not terrible. I find with electronic kits, especially the cheaper kits, they just, they are what they are, whereas running them with real drum samples makes a big difference and sounds a lot more realistic. So what I've done here, I think I used this classic Chili kit, and then in the mix section, I basically just turn the kick up a little bit, the snare down a little bit. And if you select an individual drum in SSD5, you can choose how much of that sample you run through the room emulation. And I cranked that up here. So let's just hear the drums solo, and I'll turn the room on the snare down, and then I'll turn it back up. Actually, what I should do, I should use this folders feature, shouldn't I? Let's have a listen to the drums. So that's awesome. I find that adds a lot to the overall sound, having that particular little room sample on the snare turned up a lot. Then what I did was, with the actual room sound, I have bussed this out to its own track that I've called Drum Crush. And what I've done here is I've just slammed it with this BF76, which is like a stock plugin in Pro Tools. You can see ratio on 20. I've just absolutely smashed the room. So if I turn these rooms off and you hear the drums, and then you hear it back in, it sounds so much more realistic, so much more like a live drum kit with those crushed rooms in there. Groovy stuff. The final part of that drum sound, actually there's two little things. I have this Baby Audio iHeart NY parallel compressor. This is such a handy little plugin. It's really cheap and it does what it says on the tin. It just applies parallel compression. If I listen to just those drums with this bypass, you get this. So yeah, big difference there, just using a little bit of parallel compression kind of, I guess, on the main drum bus to stick it all together and make it sound beefier, and then having the room's just absolutely crushed with BF76 makes a big difference. So I really like the way that sounds. The final thing is I have some reverb on there. I'm using, what reverb am I using here? The UAD EMT 140 plate, and I'm using that kind of on vocals and guitar. And rather than have separate reverbs, it's all just going through this one thing. So let's hear it with and without the reverb. So you can hear there's actually quite a bit of low-end boom happening in there. Hearing it isolated, I would probably be tempted to pull that out, but it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is. So that's the drum sound. And then let's have a listen to the next element in there, the bass sound, and we'll hear what that sounds like together with the drums in a second. And I'm going to close my drum folder and open up my bass folder, and look at this. There is a one track for the bass guitar. We used either the Axe-Fx 3 or the FM3, whatever was plugged in at the time, and this is what Ryan did. I think I probably just went through and muted a few little, hand noises and things like that anywhere he wasn't playing, like around here, and consolidated it. But other than that, this is the bass guitar sound, which is based straight into the Axe-Fx 3. It's probably the Dark Glass emulation and the SVT, it was basically just his live preset. So this is what it sounds like. Nice crunchy bass there. And what do I have on this? I have this UAD 1176. It's just giving it a little bit of compression. I think there's about 3 dB of gain reduction. That's kind of what I always aim for on bass. And it just makes it work a little bit better in the track without it. Pretty simple stuff. I mean, I could have got away without doing that, but I thought it sounded a little bit better with that on there. All right, let's get onto the guitars now. So the way I recorded the guitars, one of these, by the way, this is Rust. This is the other track. So we actually did 2 tracks at once, but this stuff right here is Follow the Leader. I should probably zoom in on it just a little bit. So what I did here was, I think this track here is my live take that I filmed. I did that, and then I went back and just did a double with exactly the same sound. They are panned hard left and hard right. Nothing too exciting there. Let's solo these guitars while we're at it. Then what I did was actually cut out my guitar solo. I think I've extended the ends a little bit. So yeah, I basically just, separated this, put it on its own track so that I could turn that track up and down a little bit because, why not? And pan that down the middle as well. It made life a little bit easier. This is probably the USA 2C++ in the Axe-Fx 3. I just used my live preset from memory. And this is what's going on the guitar bus. So hard left and hard right guitar are going into this guitar bus. I've got TDR Nova. There is a little bit of dynamic EQ right here, just kind of the way I would use a multi-band compressor in something like the Axe-Fx. For any points where I'm having to chug, it just tightens those up. And then I'm pulling out some of these really harsh, probably 3.6 and 5K kind of frequencies. So let's have a listen to all of that. I'm going to turn the processing off the guitars because I have this and I have Shep's Omni channel. So this is the raw guitar sound, which sounded pretty good on its own. But then when I was mixing it, I went through and I just did a little bit of EQ to make it sit better. So let's have a listen to the guitars on their own. So what I'm doing with Omni there is I think I've got like a high shelf, so less than 3 dB of gain at about 6K just to give it some air. And then what else have I got going on? A little bit of 1400 just to kind of make it pop out in the mix a little bit. And that's actually pretty subtle right there. I probably could have got away without that. Let's hear it in the mix without Omni and then with Omni.
Treat me like a god. With hand on heart, I pledge allegiance to you.
There's also a little bit of preamp saturation going on there. I really like this particular preamp saturation algorithm in Omni, and that's it. So a little bit of saturation, a little bit of EQ on the guitars, and they're absolutely thumping. And then the guitar solo, is that running through the bus? That's running through it all as well. And yeah, it's basically the same sound. I think I probably just turned it up a bit louder. I didn't even do that. It's just panned down the middle, so it sounds a bit louder. And it was funny, I always remember recording this because I was playing it and there was like just a whole section where it's like, that's not what the solo is, but I went with it anyway, and that is the take that lived on. So we've got that. Let's have a look at the vocals, and this is Ryan being Ryan at his best, because he did this in one take and it was a first take. And it's funny, on the video, there's a section where he's like, oh, I really need a drink of water. I should have had some water before I did that. So I think this is like an SM7, just straight in. Let's have a listen to the vocals on their own, because I love the sound of his voice. I love what he can do with this, and it's such a simple way of capturing a really great instrument.
There's a full moon rising, crown on my head, down on your knees. I let you treat me like a god. With hand on heart, I pledge allegiance to your brazen birth, but still you treat me like a god.
So I would say that is totally raw, but what have I got on there? I think I just used a preset in Omni. There's this Andrew Sheps preset. I think I just put on vocal 2 or vocal 3. It's either present or aggro. I forget which one it is, but they're the settings, and it sounded pretty good to me. I probably just adjusted the output to get it to sit where I wanted it. And then, this is kind of the little trick on this, because there's no vocal doubling or anything. I used Soundtoys Microshift. I love the Soundtoys plugins. They're incredible. You should definitely get their effects rack if you don't have it already. Such an amazing utility tool. And I'm just adding a little bit of Microshift on here. I just played around with this until it kind of sounded a little bit thicker and wider. So if we just have a listen to the vocals with and without Microshift, it sounds like this.
I can't wait to talk it over. Another stitch in time. There's a full moon rising.
Kind of loses some of the raw edge in there, but it does sit in the overall mix a lot better, in my opinion. So let's hear that with Microshift on there. I mean, if we were, recording this for real, he would probably just do a double of the main lead vocal. Where's Microshift? That's Omni. Actually, I'll give you an idea of what these sound like raw, and then with both of them chucked in there. So let's hear it in the mix.
Down on your knees, I let you treat me like a god. With hand on heart, I pledge allegiance to your brazen birth, but still you treat me like a god.
The final thing that's going on in the whole mix, there's some reverb and some delay sends on the vocals. Let's come down here. I think I already ran through the reverb on the drums, but the delay is probably Echo Boy. It's Echo Boy. There's another really cool plugin that I've been playing around with. Again, I talked about iHeart NY by Baby Audio. They have a delay called Comeback Kid, which is a really cool kind of 80s lo-fi delay. I went with Echo Boy in this case just because I'm really used to it. So I also have a guitar delay, which is not on in this as well, using Echo Boy as well. So let's have a listen to the vocals with and without the sends on there, because it's going to sound really, really wet, but on its own, I think it has to sound ridiculous with the effects on there, and then it's going to sit in the mix. So raw vocals, please, Ryan.
Crown on my head, down on your knees, I let you treat me like a god.
And then let's hear it in the context of the mix with and without the sends.
Crown on my head, down on your knees, I let you treat me like a god.
All the other instruments there just kind of swallow up those delays and reverb. So you could probably go a little bit more wet with those kind of things, but that's what I ended up settling on. And it's one of those things, I'm hearing it now, it's like, oh, I might change this and I might tweak that, but that wasn't the point with this. The point was to just get together, do some playing, and, well, I say get together, you know, we didn't get together, we were all in separate locations, but basically to do some playing while we don't have the opportunity to get together in the studio or live. So that's what I did. The main takeaway I hope from that is that, you know, if you're gonna have V drums, record the MIDI output and then run them through something like SSD5. You can get SSD5 for free. You can get TDR Nova for free. Shep's Omni is often on sale for like 29 bucks. The iHeart NY plugin by Baby Audio is, yeah, similarly like around $29, $30 or something like that. And then whatever your preferred method of capturing vocals and guitars and basses is, I mean, this was all basically done direct. So yeah, it is what it is. And you can hear the final mix. Maybe what I'll do is I will put a link to the video with this mix in the video description, and you can also go and have a listen to how it stacks up to the real recording. In my opinion, this doesn't hold a candle to the real recording. Troy Nababan, who produced, engineered, and mixed it, did such an amazing job with the single, and I just tried to steal a couple of those little tricks off him. But I'm somebody who plays guitar, and I'm not a mix engineer, and this was a lot of fun though, because I just kind of used tricks that I have picked up over time. There's basically no automation or anything going on in there. Again, if you were getting this ready for like a worldwide release, you would give it to somebody who knows how to do all that stuff to really get the mix to pop and sit. But you know, for for electronic drums and DI everything else, I think it sounds pretty cool. So if you guys have any further questions, let me know in the video description. Like I said as well, this is exactly the same thing I used for Rust, which is just over here.
Every day there's a new way to learn how to hate.
So there's Rust, and then we did Follow the Leader in the same session, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll do some more songs, and I have used exactly the same template for those. I've put the original recording in, I put a count of 4 on there, and I've sent it off to our drummer Cam, so hopefully he'll get those recorded and sent off to me, and then I can get the parts off Ryan, I can play my parts, I can probably don't have to spend as much time mixing it because I've kind of spent the time doing the mix. So I'm just going to tweak some levels, and yeah, there you go. It's all about playing some music that we like and having some fun and getting it out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tune in for more of this, hopefully in the future, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.